What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Concealed Carry Texas podcast. Thank you all for joining us today. If you haven't yet, go like, subscribe. If you want to help us out on the algorithms, go leave us a comment on Apple or Spotify. It helps people that are looking for concealed carry content find us a little bit easier. Also, if you haven't yet, go follow us on Instagram at Concealed Carry Texas. And you can also go check us out at our training page at concealedcarrytexastraining.com. If you're in the College Station area, anywhere locally around there, and you're looking for some local training, we can help you out with that. Outside of that, right after we just recorded our previous episode about the shooting in Tennessee, we just had another one happen in Allen at a outlet mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere too.
Yeah, that's man, and that's a weird one. And we're gonna kind of touch on that just a little bit here. The weird thing about that one is, if you've been to a mall before, which I'm sure most people have, you go shopping anywhere, you tend to not think about it that much. Okay, I'm going to a place with a lot of people. It's kind of safety in numbers. I'm going to go in here. Well, it sounds like what this guy did was just kind of, and I'm not going into motive, anything of that nature. He kind of got out of his car and started, from what it seems like, just non-discriminately unloading rounds into people. Now, my biggest takeaway from this, and this is something that I'll 100% say I am guilty of, coming from the concealed carry standpoint, this is one of those situations where it shows if you are trying to be proficient and you want to be someone who can essentially protect yourself or your family that you're with using your concealed carry weapon, you have to carry at all times. Now, I'm not saying there aren't times where it's just not feasible. You can't carry, or you don't know if you're going to go in somewhere where you're not allowed to carry. But this was one of those examples of a time where somebody maybe took in, like me, like I'm going to the local hardware store, I'm going to the local grocery store. I'm very guilty of, I don't want to take the time and put it on my belt, and go to the store. I'll leave it and I won't go out concealed carrying. But I mean, something like this, unfortunately, in the world we're living in nowadays, is something that seems very, I'm not going to say overly likely, but it's definitely a possibility now. Where we're at right now with shooters and shooters following what other shooters have done, whether it be for notoriety or whatever, there seems to be a lot more of this occurring. So I would say that should drive home the point of, if you are committed to concealed carrying, make sure you carry all the time. I've got to get better at it. I'm not saying I carry everywhere I go, but I think this demonstrates the importance of having some form of protection on you when you go out.
I don't know. And I mean, from the on the political side of things with this, I mean, I hate to say it in this manner, but, essentially the bodies weren't even cold yet. And, political officials are already calling for, gun control and banning AR-15s and all that good stuff. So, I mean, it was to be expected. Yeah, I don't have too much to say on this. There's a lot of things, a lot of information coming out with this, a lot of information that doesn't seem to be accurate information. There seems to be a lot of media just trying to drive home a narrative with this, and there's a lot of conflicting information that I'm seeing coming out with this. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of leave this one alone until we figure out the full story of what happens, or what happened, and what the motive was and everything else. But yeah, for everybody that's concerned with this, like Evan said, this should drive home the point of, if you're thinking about carrying on a regular basis, now's a good time to start doing so in the world that we live in today. I don't want to be doom and gloom by any means. But I mean, times are changing.
Yeah.
And with that, when we've briefly, we talk about a lot of, protection outside the home and things like that. One thing we haven't dedicated to is an episode of protection in the home. What are you going to do if you have a home invasion or anything of that matter? And, we briefly touched on it when we had a guest last time, but we're going to kind of get into in depth this go around a little bit more. So, let's talk about, before we even talk about inside the home, let's talk about outside your home, your perimeter. How many people have experienced somebody pulling up or just turning around in their driveway or something like that? I've had, I can give you an example of, this was kind of a situation, and I didn't have my firearm on me at home at the time. I wish I had. A couple pulled up into our driveway, and I walked out to greet them. And I thought they were some people that I helped pull out down the road. Not previous to that, they had gotten stuck, and I went and helped them out, and they came by looking for help, went and helped them out. So I thought that was them coming to, just say thanks or whatever the following day. And it wasn't. It was a completely different couple, and they were asking for gas money, that scam scheme, right? And so I told him, I said, look, man, I don't have any gas money. I don't have any cash on me. And they just like kept trying. Now, our property, we don't have a front gate. So the driveway's open. They can come right down the driveway. I told him, I said, look, man, I really don't have anything. And he's like, come on, man, we're not going to make it to the gas station. And it's like, you really don't believe them. But at the same time, you're kind of like, okay, what if these people really do need some help? Mm-hmm. And so I kind of just checked, and I was like, all right, man, look, I got $5. If you can make it to the gas station, that should get you to somewhere else to get what you need to do. Handed the guy the $5. He rolled his eyes at me and was like, man, come on, man, can you just follow us to the store and give us like $20 in gas? And I'm like, it's time for you to leave. Like it's time for you to get off my property and leave right now. And at that point, I firmed up in my tone and was pretty much giving them an ultimatum to leave. But that comes down to essentially a breach in your security, that they made it that far, and then it got to that situation there. So that's something that I need to do better on my part at home. Evan, have you ever had experience like that?
Yeah. So like I've actually got I've got a gate on the front of my property, but it's not locked, right? It's just got a chain around it to keep it closed. So it allows people to come in. Some of the more odd ones we've had. So I had a truck that I used to drive back and forth to work that ended up having a issue with the motor, and it ended up being dead. And I had a guy come by and drive in my driveway. And I was actually working out in the pasture, and he actually walked like through my property all the way out to the pasture where I was at. So he came in my front gate, went through 2 more gates to get to where I was. And whenever he approached me, he's like, hey, are you getting rid of this truck? Now, this truck's sitting in my pasture, got no sign on it, nothing saying it's for sale. The guy took it upon himself to walk all the way, a good ways into my property, go through 3 gates to get to me, to ask me a question about something that wasn't advertised. There was nothing saying it was for sale, and again, in the end, the guy didn't, like, we had the conversation. I told him, like, hey, it's kind of weird that you walked in through all these gates to get to me. And he was a nice guy. He wasn't, from that aspect, there wasn't anything off-putting about our interaction. Now, had he been someone who had, poor intentions, I had nothing. I was standing, I was working on something out in my pasture. I was not carrying. I had nothing on me. Had he walked up with any type of weapon, I would have been severely outgunned, outmanned. and he could have taken advantage of me. I've had people pull in and just randomly ask if I'm selling stuff, just anything, and those are kind of some weird ones. But luckily I haven't had anyone that gave me an overly bad feeling. Now I have had people kind of slowly drive by, and like I've got a couple of neighbors around me, and like they'll kind of slowly creep down our road, and those types of people, those types of instances have made me be a lot more alert, right? Maybe it's someone coming down looking for a house to rob or something like that. Luckily, from my standpoint, there's always vehicles in my driveway, generally always someone home. So for the most part, they don't see a time where our house is not occupied. Same thing, neighbors, there's some form of somebody in my general vicinity. Now, one of the things that we did get installed was one of the doorbells. It's not the Ring doorbell, it's another brand, but one of the camera doorbells that gives you the little alert, lets you know you're being videotaped. We had a person come up to our door before, and they had actually ended up at the wrong house. So they made it all the way up there. We used the little doorbell, could see them on the screen, talk to them, and they asked for a person that wasn't here, told them they weren't there, and they left. But that's another layer. Like even that, right? They made it past our gate, and the gate may have been open on that one. But they made it up to the house. But then we had another layer of security, and that was the doorbell camera that alerts the person, lets them know they're on camera. And then also you can make contact, right? I don't have to go to the door. I don't have to open the door. I can contact the person approaching my house. Also, we have it set to the alert that basically says you're on camera. I don't remember that exact wording, but it's something similar to that. So that provides another layer of security. The gate's great. Like I said, I don't keep my gate locked. They can lift my gate off the hinges. Even if I put a padlock on the side of it, you can lift the gate off the hinges. So that wouldn't be an end all. If it's truly someone that wants to get in, they're going to get past the gate. But then you add on the layer of you've got some type of video monitoring service. Well, now they've got to understand that, now they're on video. Whatever they choose to do next, they know they're being recorded. They went through 2 layers of security before they've ever even made it to starting to knock on my door, starting to try to gain entry to my actual house. Also, what I like about that is with that, that gives me a notification in the worst case situation. It gave me a notification someone's coming before they actually make contact with my door. Now I could start making moves, be it calling the police or getting to whatever I deem as a safe place with some form of protection, if I think it's going to go to where they try to make entry to my house. But that's where I think the outside of your home is where you're kind of what we're talking about right now. Outside of the home is where your security needs to start. I think there's a lot of security systems and actual like home surveillance systems that are on the market that are very good. They're not overly expensive. I know my parents put in a set that run off of Wi-Fi. They run off of batteries and Wi-Fi. So literally no wires ran. You just install basically the camera wherever you want it, and it runs off of batteries, and then you replace the batteries whenever you need to. So, it's about as low impact of an installation as you could have. And then it syncs up to a app on their phone, and they get a notification anytime they detect movement. So those are things that are essentially helping you to at least know or stop something before ideally it even becomes an issue. I don't know, Todd, if you've thought about doing any of that to your house, as far as putting cameras or anything out.
We would like to, but our problem comes to the area that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a real rural area. Our internet service is sketchy at best a lot of times. So a lot of these modern modern security things that we could implement or would like to implement, we really can't. So when it comes down to that, we have some security lights around the house.
Okay.
We do it that way. And then, of course, one thing that I always advocate for is we have dogs. We have 3 large dogs. One would go home with whoever comes in. One would run away. The other might let us know when they're here. But for the most part, we have 3 dogs. And anytime there's something that is kind of, out of the ordinary around here, they do a good job of letting us know. So that's kind of when we're home, that's our home security. That's our system. There is our alert system. But yeah, like you said, you have your gates, you have that outer barrier while they can unlock it and walk through, climb over it, lift it off the hinges, whatever they want to do. While they can do that, and that is easily passed, it's still another layer.
Yeah, it's a deterrent, right?
Right. Well, not even necessarily a deterrent, but information for you, right? So, okay, this guy just crawled over my gate. This guy just cut the chain on my gate, so now I'm starting to build a pattern of, or start to see, okay, what's this intent here? What is the intent of this guy coming onto my property here? Is he coming because he's at the wrong house? Is he coming because he wants to ask me if I'm going to sell something? Well, if he's doing that, he can leave me a note in my mailbox. He doesn't need to start taking my gate off the hinges,
Yeah.
And so, leading to that, going to the home, even so, a great example of this is when we're going into the home is not coming out of our home when we don't have to. So an example of this is that our friend James, we were on a trip somewhere, I forgot where it was, and his wife was at home by herself with the kids, and a gentleman stopped by. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and he knocked on the door, said he was down the road, had a flat, ran out of gas, something, and his phone was dead, and he had her on speaker, and I heard it, and he asked, "Can I come inside and use your phone?" And I immediately told him, I said, "You tell her to shut the door and call the police department. Tell him that he needs to leave and that she's calling the police department." I told her, I said, "Do not let him in the house." Because, that was way back in the day. That's how certain individuals were drawing women out of their house, not necessarily saying to use the phone, but they would take a tape recorder and they would have, sounds of babies crying, like somebody left a baby on a doorstep. And, women would, go outside and wanting to make sure that everything was okay. And then they would grab them out as soon as they stepped out the door. So people, folks will play on,
emotions,
other people emotions, and their innocence and their willingness to help others, to lure you out. So that's something that we also need to be considerate of when it comes to defense of our home, is who's approaching our door. What are they trying to allude to? What are they wanting? And are they trying to get into are they trying to get into our home or trying to get us out of our home?
Yeah.
I don't think I've really had a personal experience with that. Anyone trying to get me out of the house or anything of that matter or anything fishy. That was the one personal experience that I had, and that was James's wife.
Yeah, and I think something good from that experience alone is a stranger approaching your house and asking to come inside. I would say you never let that person inside. That I would say, if you go by that rule, I don't care if you're man, woman, child, I think that's a good rule to live by, because if you've never met this person, why are you going to invite them into your home? I'm just saying, personally, I would say if you went and you said, hey, stranger comes to my door, by no means does anyone ever let them in the house. I don't think that's anything wrong. Now, if you choose to go outside, which I would say you could even say, hey, don't go outside and confront them. You know, if you have a stranger on your property, you ask them to leave. If they do not leave, you call the police, you know, because in the end, if you can get you can take this however you want. If someone else handles this issue, you're never putting yourself in the line of fire. The best way to handle any of these issues that we talk about, any of these self-defense issues, is to remove yourself from the danger. If I can keep a wall or a door or something like that between me and the danger, then I'm that much safer. I haven't had to engage a target. I haven't had to do anything to raise my level of danger. I can call police and have police come, and hopefully they can defuse the situation, or maybe just the fact of threatening to call the police may, if this person has ill intent, will get this person to leave. Now, maybe this person really does need help, and then the police get there and he legitimately needs help, he, she, whoever is at your door, and then hopefully the police can get them help. You know, maybe they need a ride to somewhere, then they can give them a ride to somewhere, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. And, you know, when leading into that too, you know, we're talking about somebody, you know, knocking on your front door. Another thing to consider is casing. A lot of individuals, we saw that this was probably about 6 years ago in Brenham, Texas. There was a group of people that got caught doing some mischief in this manner. They were doing a bunch of B&Es, but a couple of folks caught them and called police on them. But so one individual would come up and knock on the door and ask questions, you know, act like he's selling internet. And then another individual would hop the fence in the back for the backyard. And while the homeowner is, you know, busy at the front door, he's casing out the place, seeing what there is of value so they can come back at another time. And there were a couple of people that had, you know, turned around or told them, no, not interested, turned around, and they have a big patio door and see somebody in their backyard, and they confronted them, you know, like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm with the internet company. You know, I'm just looking at stuff. No, you're on my property. You need to leave. And then they would call the police. And, you know, I don't know if they ever caught them or not, but are other entry points of your home secured at all times? If you're the only one there and you are focused at a single point by whatever distraction, whatever has pulled your attention that way, are the other entry points to the backside of your house secure as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most everybody has multiple doors in their home. Depending if you have a sliding glass door, that gives an easier point of entry. Sliding glass doors are, I would say, one of the easier doors to get in, even beyond just the physically breaking the door. Those doors generally have ways, they're not the most secure door for the exterior of your home. So that's something to think about. Do you have, you know, some other form of lock than just a little lock that's on your sliding door to stop someone from prying it open? Now, if they're going to break it, then they could break a window, they could break anything like that, right? We're upping the level of someone's want to get into your home. At that point, then, you know, now they've elevated their attack, you're going to have to elevate your defense. But still, you know, kind of what we alluded to, if you can keep a barrier in place, be it doors, windows, you know, houses, video monitoring, something of that nature to keep people either aware that you know they're there, or at least just keep that barrier in between you. Next, I guess we could move into the next discussion could be, in the event someone does actually break down the door or break a window or find some means of entering your home. the next topic we need to get into is, what do you do then? How are you going to prepare for that? I don't know, Todd. I don't know if you've looked at the entry points to your house, and maybe they're good enough for you, but like one of the things I always think about in mine is like, okay, something happens, it's middle of the night, I wake up to the sound of glass breaking. All right, go. What do I do? How do I get away from that?
Yeah. So our house layout is, I don't know, it's kind of odd. But so for our upstairs bedroom, when I come downstairs, I have to come into our living space, I have to pass 2 exterior doors. So that is something that I'm going to have to deal with right off the bat. So whenever anything happens, at that point, that's something I'm going to have to deal with right out the gate. And then I'm going to go into the living space, and then that's where our front entry door is there. Used to, when my wife and I were first together, since we stayed upstairs, my at-home plan was, if the window breaks, anything like that, is I'm going to wake my wife up, with the unmistakable that you're pretty sure somebody's in your house. I'm going to wake my wife up. I'm going to have her call 911. I'm going to grab my firearm, and I am going to stand at the top of the stairs right there, because our stairs make like a 90-degree bend. You can't get up those stairs without me being able to see you come up them first. So it is an absolute point of dominance. And at that point, if I, hear anyone downstairs, I can yell, you need to get out of my house. We've called the police, all those good things. But the moment they come up those stairs, it's fair game. And that was our point. So it was, we're going to basically barricade here. If they come past this point, then it's on me. Outside of that, if police can get here in time or they can leave, that'd be great. Yeah. Now we have a 2-year-old son. His bedroom is downstairs. So now my game plan is different. You always hear all the time, like, if you don't have to clear your house in the middle of the night, don't try to clear your house. But now you have family that you have to get to. Now that is something that you need to do. And it's something that you need to practice. You should know your house in and out. You should be able to walk through it in the dark. Every nook and cranny versus the person that's coming in there. So that should be your advantage. Think about it from that standpoint. If you're going to practice this at home, whether you have like a blue pistol or something like that, run a drill. Even do it with your family. Crash, somebody breaks in, run the scenario. I have to get to my kid in the crib. What am I going to do? Am I going to be cautious, or am I going to be coming around, pieing corners, taking my time? Or if I'm going down there and whoever's in between me and my kid is,
you're going to engage
trouble.
Yeah.
But another part of that too, when it comes to home defense, is you need to be aware of who is in your house, who may be coming at your house at odd hours, your family and any of your family members that you have, and their nighttime behaviors. There is very much, you hear it all the time about people getting shot in mistaken identity, or somebody walked into the wrong house or things. That's kind of a different thing, but we hear it all the time. You need to be aware of your family and their habits of what they're doing at nighttime as well, for that matter. But, this can relate to not just nighttime, but, daytime shenanigans too.
Yeah. So similar to your house, my house has a layout where, basically I could barricade myself in the main bedroom, and then someone would have to walk down a hallway to get to me. And that's the same way for all the bedrooms on that side. All of our bedrooms are kind of located on one side of the house down a hallway. So that gives me a single point of entry to someone coming to those bedrooms. I also have my dogs that stay inside in our kind of our laundry room area. So ideally, hopefully they're going to let me know, if someone's back there, possibly near the doors where they're at. But my plan of action is very similar to what yours is. If someone comes in, I'm going to stay in my bedroom. We're going to call the cops, get them on the line, hopefully get them on their way. And then, like you said, announce that to the person that's came in, and we're going to wait, and if I see someone stick their head down the hallway, I'm going to consider them an active threat, and I'm going to engage, because I've let you know, do not come down here. I've let you know to get out of my house. At that point, you've decided to further push me, further come at me. And that would be, kind of how my levels of engagement would progress. Luckily, for the sake of kids or anything like that, I would have a clear line of sight. Even if they were in the room we're going to use for a nursery, the line of sight to someone pushing down that hallway would be away from where their nursery would be. So that still gives me a clear line of sight, but that hallway gives me protection, except for a door's width of at least a visual break to get to their room and get them, should that occur, once we have a child in our house. So that would be my next step, would be like what you said: wake up, glass breaks, alarm goes off, something like that. Someone's broken into the house. It would be wake my wife up, and we're probably going to move to the nursery. We're just going to, as one unit, just move to the nursery, and then we'll bunker down in the nursery. If for some reason it seems like these people are coming in to come after us, I can open the window and go out the window. Gives me access to the outside. Luckily, I could, unlock the window real quick. We could, my wife could go out the window. I could climb out the window after, pass our toddler to her, and we could essentially evacuate the house at that point, and then move to our neighbor's house. Would be, how we would take that to the next step. Ideally, going to our neighbor's house, knock on their door, have them, hopefully be able to take shelter with them. Again, that's all just game planning for a fake scenario that you make up in your head. And that would be in my opinion, the worst possible scenario. I generally keep a pistol somewhere that I could get to it within a couple steps if I'm sleeping in bed. Generally keep a flashlight on the side of the bed as well, for those same reasons. If someone's breaking into my house at night, more than likely it's going to be dark. What I could also do is light up that hallway. If they're trying to come in to find us, they're going to have to stare through a flashlight and find me, while I've got a clear silhouette of them lit up by my flashlight. So that's another way that hallway actually would help me. The same thing would apply for like your stairway, your stairs coming up. They would have to stare, they can't see me. They can see the flashlight beam, and that would allow me to temporarily disorient them, to essentially give hopefully another advantage to me. Now, I'm not saying I'm John Wick. I'm not saying I'm anything like that. I'm saying my distance of engagement at, 10 to 15 foot, I feel fairly confident in.
But let's be honest, when you're in the dark and your eyes have adjusted to the dark, and you're all of a sudden hit with 1,000 lumens in the face, like, that's going to, cost you. That's going to, not you, the light user, that's going to buy you reaction time. But the other end, I mean, that's going to stun them. It's going to temporarily blind them. It's probably also going to be a shock that is, a situation that they were not intending. And when it comes to, I just wanted to throw this in there too, when it we're talking about understanding the layout of our home, is preventing other people from knowing the layout of your home. So if you have any windows or anything like that, keeping your blinds closed to where people peering in on the outside, that's another great advantage of them not knowing the layout. If they're going to make entry, they're going to have to figure it out when they get there. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to. It's your dwelling. You live there. But, moving forward, for like you said, with your plan, you talk about you have a handgun. Oh, excuse me. You have a handgun and a light. I used to carry only a handheld light with my carry. Now I have moved to a weapon mounted light. I'm a big advocate for weapon mounted lights nowadays, mostly because I have a child and there's a chance that I have to manage my child or my family in a situation like that. And if I have to have one hand on the gun and one hand on the light, I can't do that. So, if I don't have that situation, it allows me two hands on the gun. So that's, I am, if you don't use it for everyday carry, that is fine. And that's your opinion. But for at the very least at home defense, I very much advocate for you to have a weapon mounted light. And moving on from your weapon, to your weapon selection, most people will talk about, you hear it all the time. Well, what is the best weapon for home defense? Handgun, rifle, shotgun, things of, what's going to be the best? Most people relate to or say rifle. You have a high powered rifle, you have something that is low recoil, low felt recoil, and it's going to be like a fire breathing dragon in your living room. And anybody that's in there or around that house is not going to want to go in there to deal with that. That's true. Do I think a rifle is great for home defense? Yes, absolutely. But the thing that I want to get to is it depends. You need to think about your location of where you are. Are you out in the middle of nowhere like me? Yeah, like me, I can run a rifle and not have to worry about anything, over penetration or anything like that, because that's going to be the biggest thing with a rifle in that close proximity is going to be over penetration.
Yeah.
What if you're a college kid and or you're not a college kid, or you just live in the city and you live in an apartment? Man, there's no way you're going to be able to run a rifle safely in that situation if somebody is in your apartment. There's a very high probability that you are going to penetrate into somebody else's dwelling. I'm planning on doing this in YouTube in the future, talking about it, but used to apartment dwellings were divided by a brick wall. They had a brick wall in between the apartments. Nowadays, all it is each dividing wall. So you have your dividing wall. This side has 2 5/8 sheets. This side has 2 5/8 sheets. That's your firewall. That's not stopping jack shit. That's not stopping nothing. So in that situation, a handgun is going to be your best bet, but you also need to still be conscious,
of the direction.
What directions, what's where, what other people are. Also too, about your movement, what's going to allow you to move easier. And also, like you said, or like I mentioned a minute ago, controlling family. Are you going to be able to manipulate a rifle one-handed while controlling family at that time? These are all the things that we really need to consider when we start playing out these scenarios in our head. Am I saying it? It may sound like that I'm saying that a rifle is not the best bet. It depends on your situation.
Well, and you're right. Everybody has to decide that for themselves. You have to look at your situation, evaluate it, evaluate your sight lines. How or where do I think I would actually be in an engagement with someone breaking into my house? Like me, if someone breaks into my house, I'm going to be in one of my bedrooms. And I can tell you what direction I would be engaging anyone from that, from any of my bedrooms, and know, what is beyond my house, what's beyond the wall in front of me. Because also you have to think about just your apartment, your home, whatever your dwelling is, you have to think about how done, let's not even talk about people in other homes or other, other houses next to you. You got to think about who else is in your house. If you have, if you have 3 kids and they all are in a separate bedroom, well, what if your bedrooms are laid out where you think you need a push to get to your kids, and maybe it's on the other side of the house, but you run into the intruder as you're moving to that bedroom? Are you going to be able to engage that intruder to actually try to suppress a threat, or are you going to be shooting directly at whoever is in the other bedroom? That's the other thought process on, again, weapon selection. Maybe you need a shotgun with a light shot. I know that may not be the best idea for actually stopping the target. I would find it hard to believe someone's going to keep coming at you if you hit them with birdshot from fairly close range. Now, is it going to be necessarily lethal? I can't say, I'm not going to say yes or no. I know they've talked about putting rock salt. But my thing is that would be something that would be more likely to get stopped by a couple layers of sheetrock versus a handgun caliber, or certainly a rifle caliber. A 223 is going to shoot straight through, layers of sheetrock and not stop. Maybe you get lucky, it hits a stud and stops it, but you're betting on 18 to 24 inches apart stopping your round, or making the mistake and it doesn't, and possibly injuring someone from your own family. And that's where we, like we said, it's going to depend on your situation, how your layout is, how you actually think you would engage a target. And that's why I'm saying, like, my path of engagement for me in my house is very one-dimensional. Like, there's one entry point to all the bedrooms. That would be where my engagement is. If they don't, guess what? If they don't cross that point, I'm not engaging them. I don't care if they're breaking stuff, stealing stuff. I'm not going to engage them, because it's not worth my life to go engage them over something that they're going to steal or break. I would rather call the police, let the police handle it. Guess what? We get to live to see another day. Material things can be replaced. What can't be replaced is the life of you or your family. It's no different than if someone comes up to me and wants to fight somewhere. Probably my first reaction is going to either be calm the situation or leave the situation. Same thing with carrying a pistol, carrying any type of defense tools. You should generally try to diffuse the situation or leave the situation if at all possible. And that's where we talked about, all your outside barriers being in place that you can have. I'm not saying everybody is going to have cameras. I'm not saying everybody's going to have lights. I'm not saying everybody's going to have gates. But what you can put in place to actually give you a set of barriers that someone has to want to get through to come into contact with you. Then you have locking your doors, locking your windows, making sure people have to physically essentially break something to have an unwarranted or unwanted entry into your home. And then, where we talked about, if that occurs, having an idea of what you're going to do. Someone knows that if that happens, they're going to call the police. Someone else knows where a firearm or where something is to barricade your doorway. Beyond that, what happens should that threat decide to push to the area that you're taking up, safety in, that you're trying to stay away from them in. And then, you proceed to, hopefully the final step would be actually engaging that target. Ideally, you never have to get to that point. Hopefully, whatever they broke in to steal, they steal it and leave, and you're done with it. You don't have to engage them, or you yell at them, "Hey, I'm calling the cops. Cops are on their way." Hopefully that's enough. And they go, "All right, I'm done with this. It's not worth it. I'm not going to jail over it." And they leave. Ideally, that's how you want this to progress. You don't want this to progress to, I'm going into a firefight. Someone knocked on my door. I'm going to go shoot them. No, that should not be your reaction. You should not think that's got to be your reaction. your first reaction is to keep those barriers in place. Like I've got actually a big chest of drawers that sit kind of inside my bedroom door that I could essentially push against my bedroom door.
Barricade,
and barricade it. And then guess what? Now I've made it even harder for them to get in. And I have that essentially in each of the rooms of my house. There's some, now it's not necessarily designed that way, but there's a large piece of furniture that one person could push and block a door with.
Yeah.
Push, pull, whatever, you could block the door with it. And now that person, you know, unless they have came in this house to get you, there's no way they're going to beat down this door with furniture in front of it to try to get to you. You know, essentially you've just made their job easier. You're going to stay out of their hair. They can get whatever they want, get out of your house, and then you can go about it. You know, after it's all said and done, it's going to suck, but you can replace the stuff that they've stolen, the stuff that they've taken.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I highly encourage anyone listening to this, just go out there, get on YouTube, look up home invasion videos, man. Like there's a lot of stuff from, you know, stuff that seems like very, very evil intent of people trying to get in homes, and then other ones just trying to do smash and grabs, you know, stuff happening at night, stuff happening during the day. And your home defense plan can be as, I guess you could say, as simple or complicated as it needs to be, depending on your situation. You may have to consider more versus if you're a bachelor by yourself, you know, you ain't got much else to worry about. It's just, here's somebody breaking your house, stay locked up in your bedroom, call the police, somebody comes through that threshold, that's it. You know, and there's no one else that you have to worry about in the dwelling. So, you know, just think about it from your perspective. And also, you know, do mental reps in this. Consider this, you know, do dry runs in your home. Think about any scenario. Is any scenario we think of going to be the scenario? No, absolutely not. It never is. But it gives us a mental preparedness for a situation that we may encounter. Same for out on the streets in our daily life. I mean, I'm constantly just running stuff through my head all the time, whether it's whether if I'm at work or something like that. And it's, you know, I think about all right, well, what would I do if we had an active shooter threat here? You know, we've had, you know, what would I do if this happened here, or that happened there? And, you know, just get the reps in. It's the same as when we go shooting and things like that. It's just getting those reps in to where it's more consistent and it's natural for us, so that when it does happen, we're not in shock and we understand, like, okay, this is what's going on. I need to react. This is what I need to do.
Yeah. So another thing that I just realized, we talked a lot about choosing, you know, rifle, handgun, shotgun. What we didn't talk about were non-lethal means. A can of, you know, pepper spray or some type of deterrent, you know, along those same lines. That is going to, you know, like if you're in a hallway, guess what? That's probably going to stop anybody that decides to come in that hallway with you.
Big old bear fogger for the hallway.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Right? Why not buy bear spray?
There's nowhere else for that stuff to go.
Yeah. I mean, now it's going to suck for you too, but it's going to suck a lot more for the person that gets hit with it. But that's just another option, right? I mean, if you don't want to have a pistol, you don't want to have you don't want to have a gun that you're relying on, go get you a can of bear spray. I mean, it is designed to stop a grizzly bear. It will stop a person, and it's designed to engage from quite a good distance away. It's not designed to engage in close quarters. So if you're somewhere that, you know, like, hey, I've got a long hallway, or I know, you know, I can stand at the back, you know, maybe I'm in my closet or, you know, somewhere to break line of sight. And if they come towards my bedroom, I've got a clear line of sight for 20 foot in my house. I could hit them. Something like that is another option, because even if you don't hit them, the spray is going to, it's, you know, they're not going to be able to see, they're not going to be able to function.
You're going to have a shitty day.
Yeah. Like everyone is, right? The whole house, it's going to suck for everybody. It is, but I could almost, you know, I could almost guarantee you that threat is going to be neutralized. They're damn sure not going to want to stay in your house. So that's just another option, right? We were talking about more lethal means, right? We were talking about guns, we were talking about all that, but we also try to keep in mind, things on this podcast for people that maybe they don't want to carry a gun, or maybe they don't feel comfortable having a gun.
On the fence,
yeah. But that is a very good option. And that's a very good option. Like I said, I've carried the bear spray on hikes and things like that. I mean, if you read the instructions and you see what those things can do, they tell you to engage the bear. I think it's from like 30 foot away or more. Like they tell you, like, basically when you can see the bear, you start spraying it at them. You don't let them get close to you. So in my mind, if it's something, good enough to stop a 500-pound animal from wanting to come eat me, it's probably something good enough to stop someone breaking in my home and trying to rob me.
Yeah. No, good point. Yeah. Man, I think that's about it. That's all I have to add to this. You got anything else that we can touch on?
Not really. I think that's about it. Kind of like the highlights of what we touched on here, right? Having a plan for if something, if someone, you hear a glass break in the middle of the night, you hear a door open in the middle of the night, not supposed to open, what are you going to do? Also putting in some form of barrier to help stop people from even getting to your home. Now, like what we talked about, right? Apartment complex, you're not going to have a gate. You're not going to have something like that to stop people from getting to you. Generally, they're going to have their own gate. Now, that's not to say people can't follow someone in. Things like that can't happen, but most of them have a lock or a double lock. So, double lock your doors. The stop plates for your deadbolts, generally they're put in initially with like little inch-long screws, especially if it's somewhere.
3 inches in that thing, man.
Yeah, if it's your own home, take those out and replace them with a 3-inch long screw. And that person's not going to be able to just kick it and knock it off the hinges, or knock the deadbolt free. Those are little things you can do. And that's not, we're not talking about adding an extra lock. We're talking about you go get a couple screws from your hardware store, back one out, replace it with a longer one, back the other one out, replace it with a longer one. It's 2 minutes of work.
One other thing you can do too, talking about door, well, there are several things you could do. If your doors are, depending on which way they open, if your hinges are exposed to the outside, you can get security hinges so they can't punch pins out.
Yeah.
And that's also great too, because the door is then forced against the frame. So it's more difficult for someone to kick in because it's counterproductive, they're not kicking in the swing side. Also too, what you can do is they make security hinges also in this manner, but you can do it DIY if you want. Take where your hinge is, drill a hole, put a dowel pin in it. You put a dowel pin in there and then drill a hole on the opposite side. So when the door is closed, you have a dowel pin in between both of those hinges. So even if they can drive the pins out on the hinges, they can't lift the door out because it's secured by the dowel pins or the roll pins. Yeah, so those are other things simple things, just home project stuff you can do if you're looking for some other security steps that you can include. There's a lot out there. Just get out there and look, there's a lot of stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully this will help everybody maybe think about something that maybe, you hadn't looked real hard into. It's something that I feel like no matter how good you are, there's probably always something you can do better, right? You may have done all the things we were talking about. Maybe you feel comfortable about it. Never stop learning. Maybe you may see a video, or you may see someone else talk about it, and maybe they bring up something that you hadn't seen or we didn't mention. If you start looking up, home safety, home defense, you can find a lot of resources from a lot of knowledgeable people giving you, little here, kind of like the screws in the door hinge or the screws in the door plates, things like that. These little tidbits that'll just help make your house a little bit safer. And whenever I'm saying safer, basically I mean harder to penetrate the exterior, harder to get in. Again, it's going to depend on who's coming up against it, how hardcore they are. I would say, a lot of smaller deterrents can stop a lot of thieves, because a lot of thieves they're looking to get in and get out as quick as possible, just because they're trying to not go to jail, right? The longer you're there, the more likely cops are to show up. The more people you involve, the more likely cops are to show up. So that's why we're saying, always announce, always let them know, hey, cops are called, cops are on their way. Obviously say that no matter what. I don't care, cops can say they're not on their way. You yell out that cops are on their way, you let them know, just so it's that little bit of, if you can just make them doubt themselves long enough to make them go, hey, it's not worth it. I don't want to go to jail over trying to steal a TV off the wall. Anything you can do to provide that extra layer of protection for yourself. So, like I said, we went over exterior, we went over outer layers of protection. Todd mentioned lights, floodlights, motion sensing lights are good. Just like we talked about, you're disoriented in the dark, all of a sudden a light pops on, it's going to startle you if you don't know it's there. So, it's just one more thing to maybe make someone think twice about coming to your house and trying to steal anything. Like I keep my front porch lights on, or my porch lights on around my doors. I figure it's just one more thing, right? If someone comes up, they're going to be seen. Easier for me to see them. It's those little things I think about might be an extra deterrent. I want to make my house as unappealing as possible for people to steal, for people to try to break in.
Yeah. Well, I think this is good. Definitely gives me motivation for, I think, the next episode, we might talk about personal security outside of the home. Haven't really gotten into the weeds on that. We allude to it in some of our conversations, but really kind of get into the nitty gritty of, some things that you probably should be doing. So y'all can probably look out for that on the next episode. Other than that, guys, this is it for this episode. If you haven't yet, go check us out on Instagram at Concealed Carry Texas. Once again, you can check us out on our training page at concealedcarrytexastraining.com if you're looking for any local training, basic pistol, concealed carry classes, things of that matter. We can help you out. All right. Till next time, guys. Y'all have a good one.